Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing? Oh, good. Okay, first cup of coffee. Eventually, it'll work its way through. All right. My name is Darcy Lucier. I am really thrilled to be here with you this morning to share with you the state of AI innovation at Microsoft. All right. As was introed, I'm a partner technology strategist at Microsoft. What that means is I'm actually in the partner solutions group, global partner solutions at Microsoft, where I get to work with our whole ecosystem of Microsoft partners, whether that be solution integrators or independent software vendors. I've been with Microsoft for 4 years, and over that time, even though it's only 4 years, I've seen quite a bit of how software has evolved over the last 4 years, and specifically as it relates to AI, and what we've been seeing in our partner ecosystem, how they've been coming up with AI solutions and innovations. So what I want to do today is kind of use this session as the kickoff for the rest of the day, because if you look at the schedule, we've got sessions that are going to go deep on certain technologies. We've got sessions that are going to talk about transformation. We also have sessions that are going to talk about security and data and the securing of data. And all of that really relates to what it means to implement an AI strategy or to adopt AI within an organization. So in my talk, I'm going to share some real-world examples. I'm going to discuss what AI transformation looks like and then how to use AI responsibly, and hopefully that'll be a good kickoff for the rest of the day. AI is shifting business today. But before we get to how it's shifting business today, we have to talk about how we got here. So you may think, just because of the last couple of years, that AI just kind of came out of nowhere, right? ChatGPT was released in 2022. The Copilot announcements at Microsoft came out in 2023. But really, we have to go back even further. So from Microsoft, well, if we want to go back really further, we got to go back to the 1950s, which is when AI as a science really started to emerge. But then over the last few decades, we saw machine learning and all sorts of other things come out. In 2016, from a Microsoft timeline, there were two major things that happened. The first is that we released Cognitive Services, which was a collection of AI services really focused around vision, speech, and text recognition. And the other thing was that was our initial partnership with OpenAI. So at that point, OpenAI was a little startup, and they had this idea about LLMs that they wanted to do, and Microsoft thought, oh, this is great, we should partner with you. Fast forward 3 years to 2019, and Microsoft said, we really want to partner with you, and they actually invested $1 billion with a B to OpenAI, and that was to jointly develop supercomputing technologies. Fast forward then to 2022, ChatGPT comes out, and then in 2023, Copilot is released, as well as all the Azure AI services. And that really opened the floodgates to where all of a sudden generative AI was everywhere. And I'm sure all of you, are, how many people here are like, can we not hear about AI every single day in IT? Is there a little bit of overload? I get it. But the reality is that AI is shifting how businesses operate today. It's taken a bit, it just hasn't happened overnight, but it is happening. And so we have to respond to that as an industry, not just in IT, but just in every industry really, because it touches every industry. Some of the statistics that we see coming out, when we looked at people who are using our productivity suites with our copilots, we noticed that 75% of knowledge workers are already using AI, and that number actually doubled in 6 months since September 2024. And on average, they saved about 30 minutes a day just in productivity. Again, this is in that Copilot context, right? So we are seeing some time savings from a productivity point of view. 65% of orgs have reported that they are using or will be deriving business value from Gen AI in 2024, and that's from a McKinsey report. And there's an estimate that for every dollar invested in AI, organizations can receive about $350 back in ROI. So there is a tangible ROI to investing in AI. So these numbers are nice and numbers are great, but I don't know about you. I I think they're nice, but I don't get excited about just seeing numbers. What I do get excited about is how organizations are using AI. And so what I want to start with is, and I kind of borrowed the mantra for the conference this year, I want to start off with talking about how to be innovative with AI. What are some of the things that we're seeing out in the industries and how people are using this? So I've got a whole bunch of companies here that I want to talk about. The first one, biodiversity. Biodiversity, very clever name they called their company. They are using pollen collected from honeybees, running them through AI to do analysis on pollution and pesticides, and then reporting that back to government agencies and landowners so that they can take action if they see anything that's of concern. The USA Surfing organization, they're using AI to analyze their athletes to determine how they can improve, but also how they can avoid injury. I debated making an Edmonton Oilers joke at this point, but I feel like it's too soon. I'm glad I got a few laughs at that. Thank you. The Jets were no better last year. WPP. WPP is a huge global marketing agency. They created their own AI, what do they call it, Superbrain? It's really interesting. So I'll give you an example of how it gets used. In their workflows, they'll have a customer come to them, let's say it's a car customer or an automotive company, and they say, hey, we're going to do a brand new promotion for the holidays this year. And what we'd like you to do is come up with some really great videos. And so their creative people at WPP will then go and they'll create an initial video, and then they'll submit that into their AI system. The AI system will then leverage all of their history of developing various types of marketing materials and campaigns, and will actually make recommendations based on what the AI sees. So for instance, if this is I didn't realize this, but I went and actually looked on an internet search, and it's true. If you're doing a holiday campaign for a vehicle, you probably want the vehicle to be red, kind of like Santa, or blue or silver or white, some type of holiday color. You probably want it to be in a snow type of environment, not someplace out in the desert or something. So it's those type of insights that they can provide to try and enhance and speed up the development of that campaign before they give it back to the customer. CarMax. CarMax is, I don't know if they're in Canada or not, but in the US, they are a large used vehicle, I don't know if dealership is the right word, superstore maybe is what we'll use. And they get a ton of used vehicles that come in. Now, if you think about it, any sort of online retailer, you want to have some sort of synopsis on the products that you're selling. So if you think about thousands of cars that come onto just one lot, how are you cataloging that, and then how are you coming up with summaries of what these vehicles are so that people that are going to your website can easily consume what they're looking for or help in their search? They used AI to be able to very quickly create synopsis for all the different information sheets they had on all their vehicles, where they found that they could create 5,000 summaries in a matter of hours, which would have taken much, much longer if they tried a manual process. So they're leveraging it there. Epic is a health platform. They're using AI to add features and functionality like if a patient is coming in, it can create a synopsis for the doctor or the nurse prior to the appointment so that they have a summary of what the patient's background is. They can also create pre-filled out emails to respond to any patient inquiries. AltaML, I love this one because this is actually a homegrown story. AltaML is based here in Edmonton. They're using generative AI to create really interesting models around natural disasters, and specifically is one around wildfires, and to try and predict where wildfires will happen so that they can then give those to the authorities and say, okay, maybe you should strategize where your resources are going to get deployed proactively rather than reactively. And then Siemens as well, they have a whole system where their factory workers, while they're on the floor, if they see something that's wrong, they want to report it, they can do it in natural language. So being able to bring up a chatbot type interface and just typing what they see, and then it's able to take action or recommend actions or route it to the proper person. Instead of, oh, I'm going to bring up a form, I'm going to pick the category of issue from the drop-down list, and then we're going to pick the subcategory of the issue from another drop-down list. I'm sure we've all seen those type of systems. This is more working in more natural language. So these are just some examples of, beyond just a simple chatbot, showing the power of generative AI and the expanse and how you can really leverage it to really change not just your business systems, but also experiences for your customers. I want to also highlight 3 specific partners in a healthcare context. So, because this is, I know the NIDA Symposium is very much around, it has its basis around healthcare in that, and many of you are in that space. So, Canary Speech. So this is a partner of ours. I don't understand how this works, but they have come up with a way that through audio, they can identify certain markers that may be predictors of either health issues or potential for disease through audio. And they're leveraging AI for that. So from a 40-second voice conversation, they can run it through their analysis and come back and have not only predictions, but also potentially some diagnosis. Amazing way to leverage the power of AI for healthcare, and especially when we're dealing in the Indigenous context with communities that are far north, that are fly-in only, I'm based in Winnipeg, so coming from Manitoba, many of our reservations are fly-in only. Relying on telehealth or virtual appointments with doctors is something that is of great value. Adding on features like this or services like this where you can get even more information in less obtrusive ways where you don't need a lab on site, you can leverage something like just audio, has great benefits and great potential. Teledoc. So this slide was created because of how they're using Copilot, and yes, they're using Copilot and seeing lots of internal benefits and being productive, and it's great. But the really interesting thing I want to raise with Teledoc is they also do some really interesting solutions around diabetes management. And so where they're leveraging AI is in 2 key ways. One is they have an application where if you're a type 2 diabetic, you're trying to manage your lifestyle, it can take real-time data from your activity, what you're eating, maybe even blood glucose from a monitor that's remote enabled, and it can give you suggestions based on that to say, maybe you should try this lifestyle change today. And not just like, hey, we looked at this week, here's what you should try next week, but on a daily basis to try and give that bit of gamification and instant recognition. The other thing that they're able to do, because they have such a large data set in the diabetes space, is that they are actually able to do predictive analysis as well. And so especially for people with type 2 diabetes, and I'm one of them, if we're not careful, we could see ourselves get into an unmanaged state where really bad things can happen. They have solutions that will help predict that a person might be on track to be in one of those states, and therefore we need to take more immediate action. So real-world healthcare implications that is powered by AI. And the last one I want to talk about is government in Nunavut. So this one may not seem like a medical-related one at first, but bear with me. So a few years ago, I think it was 2021, we announced that we were adding Inuktitut and also Inunakwin to our translator services. This is something that we partnered with the government of Nunavut and worked with them and their language keepers so that we were able to not just add like the Romanized version, so where it's English letters to sound out, but actually the symbols. So with our translator services, you can actually translate from whatever language into Inuktitut as the symbols. And so for the people in Nunavut, this is really important because it's maintaining language preservation. It's also ensuring that as they go to their daily work, they're able to do it in their traditional language. Here's the health piece of this, and this is where AI comes in a broader sense. So telehealth is obviously a big item that is in the healthcare space. The idea that we can have, I was just talking with somebody yesterday that there's already some system in Alberta, I think, where you can have a video call with a doctor. and you don't actually have to go into an office or into a clinic. Fantastic. Now imagine that you could do that, but you were able to communicate with somebody in your own language even though they didn't know it. That's what our translation services does. So you could get on a Teams meeting to talk to somebody. I could talk to somebody that's over in China. I don't need to know Mandarin. They don't need to know English. But the AI services that we have will do the translation for us. And not just in words. You can have it so that it will actually speak to you in your native language and translate it that way. So for the people in Nunavut, we still have a few steps to go. We have text-to-text right now. We're still working on speech-to-text and text-to-speech. Maybe watch in the December timeframe. That's a teaser that we may have some announcement coming soon. But there is a future where you can have somebody in Nunavut talk to a doctor remotely and be serviced in Inuktitut, which is fantastic for Indigenous communities. So just another way where even language preservation can have an impact on the well-being and the health of Indigenous people. Okay, I'm not going to read all of these companies, don't worry about it. This is just to show you that there are even more. The amount of companies that are investing in AI, that have AI solutions, that are planning AI solutions, and that are making it part of their technical landscape is vast. So this isn't something where, oh, we had some announcements about a year ago and people are still kind of testing the waters a bit. No, there are companies that are either investing really heavily or even building their entire companies around AI. And so we need to have, we in turn need to be thinking about how can our organizations be innovative? What are the things that we can do with AI beyond kind of, some of the nice demos that, big tech organizations like mine like to put out, but what are the more complex things? Because those are the things that are really exciting, and those are the things that can really drive really meaningful impact. Okay. So that's a bit on innovation. Now let's talk about being prepared. So what does it mean to be prepared for this AI wave? There's a few different things that your organization should consider. The first one is technology. So from a Microsoft point of view, and this is about the state of the Microsoft AI, so I'll talk a little bit about where we're at. We've got the full end-to-end technology stack to enable both AI development and just AI enablement within your organizations. So from a productivity point of view, we have co-pilots. There's a few sessions there's a session, I think, one session for sure today, and I think there were a couple yesterday that mentioned co-pilot. Co-pilots are going to continue to be ubiquitous within the Microsoft ecosystem. So right now we have them for M365. We've got a security co-pilot. Our new Fabric platform for data has its own co-pilot. I have not heard yet, but I'm sure Notepad will get its next co-pilot. I'm kidding. We're not going to do a Notepad co-pilot. Although now that I've said that, just watch. They're going to come out with a Notepad co-pilot. But co-pilots are definitely part of our productivity stack now at Microsoft. Not just within Office, but also extending into Azure and our other products and services. If you want to build your own AI experiences, we have development tools for that in Copilot Studio and Azure AI Studio. The world's most loved developer tools, our marketing people love to talk about how they're the most loved. But Visual Studio, VS Code, and then also GitHub for developing and also being a great first encounter for development teams in AI. GitHub Copilot is an exceptional tool for helping enable developers to develop faster and be more productive and be able to be producing in quicker time. We have over 1,600 frontier and open source AI models available in Azure AI Services. So OpenAI and some of the other larger ones are well known, but we also cater to a large number, 1,600, which includes many open source ones as well. Fabric is our unified data estate, which is integrated into the whole AI tool chain. And then we have enterprise-grade security and compliance, and we're also leaders in trustworthy AI, and I've got a whole section coming up where I'm going to talk a little bit more about what that actually means. So we definitely have an advantage with our tool set and definitely a proven leader in AI transformation. But The most common fallacy is believing that AI is only about technology. Technology is important, but it's not the most important thing. Because if we look at what actually drives AI value within organizations, it's these 5 things. It's organization and culture, it's business strategy, it's applied AI experience, AI governance, and then also technology strategy. So let's start with the first one, organization and culture. For AI initiatives to be successful, you have to have buy-in at the top. You need to have that leadership buy-in at the executive level that says, this isn't just going to be some small little project that IT or somebody is going to have for fun. This is something that we really want to consider as potentially something that our business wants to adopt as part of our overall strategy. If you have that vision, you have that access to resources or that commitment, that is a big part of what's going to set you up for success. Now, also the business strategy. How AI is going to support your business goals. Yes, it's... Oh. Don't worry, I didn't kick the whole water over chair. It's okay. I need a little stand or something for it. Business strategy. It's great if you want to test out AI internally. You want to do a little project internally. I've seen companies that say, hey, we're going to make a little HR chatbot and we're going to see, how that works. That's great. But if you want a broader AI strategy, you need to connect it to your business goals. You need to connect it to how you're going to receive value. Otherwise, it's just going to be another piece of technology that sits in your organization but doesn't really drive anything. And especially if you want to connect it to outcomes and measure those outcomes, you want to make sure that you're making that connection to it. The third thing is applied AI experience. Now, this goes hand in hand a little bit with the business strategy and the organization and culture in that you need to be adopting it internally yourself. You need to have that commitment. So I've seen a lot of product companies where what they'll do is they'll say, we're going to create an AI offering, whether it's a product or whether it's a service offering. But they're not actually adopting it internally, and they struggle. And the reason they struggle is because they aren't using it themselves. So at Microsoft, we like to say that we are customer zero when it comes to our own AI services and our own AI tools. We are encouraged and very strongly encouraged to use our own tools on a daily basis, but not just so that we can say we do, but to actually use them to provide feedback. We are the best source of feedback to our developers and our product groups on how our AI tools are working, on how our AI products actually work when we test them out and use them. So it's really important that you have that. So from a development point of view, if you have a development team and they're being told, hey, we want you to go build something in AI, well, how are they using AI currently? Are they using something like GitHub Copilot? Are they getting used to the idea of what AI is and how it works? If you're wanting your frontline workers who are administrators, if you want them to adopt AI and you're telling them to, how are you encouraging them to internally adopt them and make it part of their regular business day? Make it part of the work streams that they do and build it in. And then there's AI governance. This is also a big topic we're going to talk about a bit later on, but it can't be ignored. And I think when we saw the early days of AI, we saw that companies were rushing out, and they would go, I know, it's good. I feel like I shouldn't talk. It's good. The sacred soundtrack. I like that. I've never had a sacred soundtrack when I've delivered a session. This is good. This is good. But AI governance. So, processes, controls, accountability structures to govern data privacy, security, and responsible use of AI. I'm going to talk more about this later, not on this slide. I've got more to talk about on this later on. But then also technology strategy. So, as much as I said technology isn't the key thing, it is still an important thing. And so you do need to have a strategy, especially in your internal IT, that says, okay, if we are going to start doing AI, what does that mean for our current infrastructure, our current cloud services that we're using? What does this mean for security that we have to look at around our data? All of those different things that now incorporate AI as another lens that you look into. Okay, so if these are the 5 drivers of AI value, though, you might be thinking, okay, well, that's a whole lot for where my organization is at right now. Well, that's okay, because your roadmap to creating value with AI depends on where you are on your AI journey. The first one is exploring. So maybe you're just starting out with AI. You're learning, you're experimenting in a few areas. This is kind of the organization that is just dipping their toes in. Maybe you have a few small groups that are trying things out. And then you move on to the planning stage. And this is where you're actively addressing, defining, planning your AI strategy. This is probably where now you're looking at POCs. You're doing proof of concepts, you're developing small applications, but these are applications that you're actually deploying either internally in your organization or maybe that you're deploying to a select group of customers or external users. And then you move on to implementing, moving from proof of concepts into more full production. And so this is where now, okay, we've proven this out, now we want to take it broader, and we want to start actually making applications and systems that we have leverage AI in a broader way. Scaling is where now you're scaling AI projects across the entire organization. So if you think about at the implementation stage, maybe that's only 1 or 2 departments that are doing it. When you get to the scaling AI project stage, now you're looking at this as an organization-wide strategy. AI has now been adopted, it is part of your ecosystems, and now it is expected that it will be part of your technology going forward. That is a very transformative moment where you go from, we're testing things out, to, no, we're gonna be using AI. I like to think of it as there was a day in the past where the idea that web pages and web applications or just the web itself would somehow be the replacement for desktop applications? No, everyone has a desktop. Why would I trust the web to do, complex business operations? That's not something that I would ever consider. And yet here we are all these years later, and I would say that the web is definitely the go-to platform deployment for many applications. When you get to that scaling level, it's the same type of paradigm, but with AI. And then finally, realizing. And this is where realizing repeatable and measurable value across the organization, this is where now you're just going, and AI just becomes second nature. You're not even really thinking about it anymore. The same way that if we need to spin up a web application, we don't really think about that anymore. We're just, oh yeah, it's a web application, we do it. So think about with your organization, what stage are you currently at? Because if we go back to this one, the 5 drivers of AI value, what these look like are going to be very different depending on what stage you're at, right? So, and if you have questions on what that is, feel free to come talk to me after, but then also, I think there's a number of service providers here that can also speak to that, and I can get you names of some partners in that as well if you're interested in talking to somebody more. All right. One note on learning and skilling. So if you are interested in learning more, you want to understand, what type of learning do I need for my role as it relates to AI? We have a learning hub. You can go to learn.microsoft.com/AI. And this isn't just for technical folks. We actually have role-based learning. So if you are in the business side, executive, legal, we have learning paths, data, security. We have learning paths that you can take that'll help put you in the right direction on what you need to know and what you can learn in relation specifically to your role. Okay. So now we're going to bring it home with Be Well. This is where we're going to talk a little bit about responsible AI and the importance of responsible AI. We have a saying that Microsoft runs on trust, and that's something that we genuinely believe. We think that trust is foundational to business, and without it, then we fail. So with AI, we've got a very strong set of commitments. Oh, sorry. Again, 2-pointer. That was it. Whatever your business goals, trust is foundational. We're built on trust. So these are our enterprise AI commitments. First of all, your data is your data. So when you're talking about AI, because this is probably the biggest question that we get from people is, if I store my data with Microsoft in Azure, is that data going to be used to train models? No. If you're storing data in your tenant on our cloud, that is your data. It's not used for any sort of training. It's secured. It's separate. We don't touch it. We also have something called the customer copyright commitment. So one of the concerns that came out was, I want to use generative AI, but I have concerns that the content that's going to be generated, what happens if somebody brings legal action on me saying that I violated their copyright? I'm concerned. I don't know if I can trust it. Well, what we did was we stepped in and said, no, we're going to make a commitment to you that if anybody comes after you legally with a copyright infringement, we will actually step in the way and we will take that on. And so that is something that we put out there to protect customers. Not that we think that's a concern, but if something was raised, we're ready to stand in that gap. Our approach to privacy and responsible AI, I've got a slide, I'll talk to that in a second. Secure Future Initiative. Security is a top priority within Microsoft, and even more so lately as we see more and more cyber attacks happening. And so we've started what's called the Secure Future Initiative, where across the entire organization, whether it's our product department, whether it's our operations, no matter what, security is top of mind. It's everything from making sure we don't double scan the badges in as we're going into our buildings, all the way to how are we securing our infrastructure and our data and customers' data. So we have a huge focus on security, and we're increasing the focus that we already had. People may not know this, but Microsoft is a security company. We have a full suite of security tools. We have full teams of, I don't know what the right term is, but I'll use like cybersecurity superheroes. I sat in a session, this was years ago, where some members of our security team were talking about how they were able to identify and contain a ransomware virus and actually trace it back to the overseas group that had created it and the other group that was leveraging it, and how the whole criminal enterprise works. And it blew my mind that at a technology company we have people that are doing something I would expect out of some sort of crime drama. But these are the type of professionals that we have at Microsoft when it comes to security. And then sustainability by design. We know from the whole Bitcoin era that if you put a lot of GPUs somewhere, that takes a lot of power and electricity. And it just so happens that if you want to fuel AI, you need a lot of GPUs, which take a lot of power and electricity. So we recognize that if we're going to be the platform for AI, we need to have a response on the sustainability piece. And that's why we have things in place to make sure that we're trying to keep our carbon down when we build our data centers. We have sustainable plans that take environmental factors into consideration. And we have lots and lots of information on our website that talks about the different sustainability things that we're doing. But these are all the same type of things that your organization should think about as well, because you may be asked about it also. You may be asked about, hey, if I, as a customer to your organization or as a user to your organization, how is my data safe in your systems? What's your approach to privacy and responsible AI? How are you securing your infrastructure? How are you securing your organization? And what are you doing from a sustainability point of view to ensure that your applications or your systems aren't causing any sort of environmental harm? So these are all still things, even at the Microsoft level, we have a different scale. These are all things that at an organizational level you should be thinking about and considering as part of this AI strategy. Okay, responsible AI. How many of you, going back to 2016 was a busy year. Cognitive services, the open AI thing. How many of you remember TAY, T-A-Y? Oh, a couple people, and I see by the smiles, yeah. So TAY was a chatbot that Microsoft decided to release onto the world. It was an innocent chatbot that just wanted to interact with people. Now, if you were going to put a chatbot somewhere to interact with people, what is the last place you would put it? Twitter. Guess where we put it? Twitter. Within 16 hours, Tay had to be taken down because it was responding in objectable ways, is probably the nicest way to put it. Now, we took it away. That could have been a big black eye. Oh my gosh, this was a failure. That was one of the best ways that we learned the hard way about how important responsible AI is, and about thinking about how we deploy AI solutions and how we create AI solutions, and even thinking about who the end users of these AI solutions are. And all of these things around bias and fairness and transparency and all these sort of things. None of this was being thought at the time. And so we learned quite a bit. Not Microsoft related. There was a while there where, in the initial AI wave of excitement, there were all these articles. And there were things like, I asked AI to generate this, and here's what it showed. And so one of the articles that I read was, I asked AI to generate a picture of what Europeans thought people from every US state looked like. And so it generated 50 images, and with a lot of the usual stereotypes. So if it was somebody from Georgia, they were in a peach orchard. If it was somebody from Louisiana, they were at a table of crawfish. If they were in California, I think there was a surfboard or something, right? But what I noticed when I looked at all 50 of these images was that everybody was male and everybody was Caucasian. Now, either people in Europe really think that everybody in the US is only male and only Caucasian, or the AI was built with a bias in there to say, when you generate images, just use men, and these are the skin tones you should use. That's an example of why it's important to be thinking about responsible AI, because AI itself, as much as we talk about how smart it is and intelligent, it still relies on humans to direct it. It still relies on humans to tell it, to guide it in how it creates things, in how it presents its results. And so that's why when we're thinking about our own AI solutions and developing them, there's a few principles we need to keep in mind: fairness, privacy and security, transparency, reliability and safety, inclusiveness, and accountability. These are all things that we should be thinking about to say, how are we making sure that these are being addressed within our solution? And I could go on for a whole hour just on this one slide. I won't. I will provide links afterwards we have a whole bunch of materials that you can read up on more of these things. But the base principles there, those are things you have to think about. Same with the corporate standard. Goals, requirements, practices. How are we governing ensuring that responsible AI is happening? How do we make sure that as we roll out AI as a commonplace technology across all our organization, or all our departments in our organization, that everyone is maintaining to these standards of principles? Same thing with the implementation, same thing with just oversight, monitoring, reporting, auditing, compliance. How are we making sure that once we deploy something, that there isn't something that we miss that happens to go wrong, that we have things to be able to check in on, guardrails in place. One of the biggest things I think that we did learn from the whole Tay experience was, if you look at our Azure Copilot services, like if you go into Copilot and it's the web version, you're asking it things, if you try and get it to create or respond in an overtly negative way, or using something that's just not good, it won't do it. And part of the reason is because we've built intentional guardrails in the back end that will prevent it from acting that way. That's part of creating the responsible AI. And we've actually rolled that out now so that it's part of the overall stack that customers can take advantage of. So understanding that this is a big part of it as well is something to take into consideration in your planning as you're looking at your AI solutions. Okay. So I talked quite a bit there about a whole bunch of things. I want to sum up with just ending it on a positive note, though. Not the responsibility is a bad thing, but there's a lot here, right? It's not just as easy as, oh, we're going to create a chatbot and put it out there and let's see what happens. There's a lot to planning an AI solution, practice, adoption, transformation within your organization. I think that the three mottos that we had for this symposium really ring true to that, though. The idea of being innovative, really thinking, blue sky, what can we do with AI? Looking at what other organizations are doing, looking at how innovative they are with their solutions and the type of things they're doing. What can you do in your organization? What are the things that you can really push the limits on to really realize that value of AI? To be prepared, recognizing that there is going to be work in developing this. This is going to be a new practice within your organizations. There's lots of organizations out there that want to help. There's lots of people out there that have built entire practices already around organizational transformation, and they're recognizing that AI is part of that moving forward. Those organizations can be helping as well. So look at where you can get assistance, but also where internally how you need to structure. And then finally, be well, recognizing that there is a holistic health piece to AI, and it governs not just the responsibility to your end users, but to the environment and to other factors as well. But in the same way that mobile introduced a really exciting paradigm shift to the technology landscape, in the same way the web introduced a very, exciting time in the technology landscape, I think AI, we've already seen, is exciting, and I think that we've got a really great future in the next few years. So thank you very much for your time. Have a great rest of today, because like I said, the rest of the sessions today all build on this idea of AI and technology and how we take it to that next step. So enjoy the rest of your day. I'll be around for questions, so thank you so much for your time.